bathini so bathole hmm? So All right. Ladies and gentlemen, sorry to keep you waiting. We had to wait for most of us to get settled. We've been alerted that the President, the Minister, will be joining us in a moment. All right. I'm told they are just around the corner. May we then please stand? And please remember to switch your phone on or off, put them on silent. Good clap, yes, of course. Okay. May be seated. Your Excellency, Mr. President Cyril Ramaphosa, I would like to make a request before I proceed, that because of the length of the program and the speakers that we have, that the acknowledgements be kept to a bare minimum, Mr. President. So that's the first request. The second request is that we do not read the CVs of the speakers that will be coming to speak. I'm told that the reason for that is that if we had to read their CVs, we will never get the messages that we hope to get for the ceremony. So I hope, Mr. President, you agree with me that I could acknowledge a few. The Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, and then the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. Was told earlier on that the Minister of Employment and Labor had joined us as well, so I'm acknowledging him. We also have ministers from the Democratic Republic of Congo, Brazzaville, and Angola. I think that's what we have. And then the Princess of Jordan, and then Dr. Nelson from the White House advisor, deputy advisor to the President of the US, Governor of Mexico, as well as the ambassadors and all the high commissioners. I will be acknowledging some of the speakers as I invite them to come to the podium that will speak after the Honorable Minister of Science and Innovation have spoken. So also, Mr. President, the third last request from me is that even though I'm a program director, may I not welcome you? Because I don't have the power to do that, and I'm not so sure if I can welcome you in your own country and in an event that is hosted in your own country. But may I then humbly request the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Minister Blaine Nzimande, who is also the host and the co-chair of the World Science Forum 2022 Steering Committee, to come to the podium.
Oh, okay. His Excellency, President Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, President of the Republic of South Africa, and our very special guest tonight, Professor Thomas Freund, the President of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, who is my esteemed co-chair of the World Science Forum 2022 Steering Committee, Excellencies, Ministers of Partner Countries of the World Sciences Forum, and distinguished representatives of the Diplomatic Corps, the leadership of the World Science Forum partner organizations, the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization, known as UNESCO, the International Science Council, the American Association for the Advancement of Science, the World Academy of Sciences, the Inter-Academy Partnership, and the European Academy's Science Advisory Council delegates to the 2022 World Science Forum. Allow me to warmly welcome you all to our beautiful country, and in Cape Town in particular, for the World Science Forum 2022. It's been a long road since November 2019, when at the end of the 9th World Science Forum in Budapest, which I was privileged to attend, Professor Freund, on behalf of the World Science Forum Partnership, had entrusted South Africa with the responsibility of hosting the 10th Forum in South Africa, the first to be held in Africa, which was originally planned for 2021. We could not host it because of COVID-19, but here we are today. It is thus with great joy and immense pride that South Africa today is able to honor its commitment to host this premier and prestigious science event. Indeed, we should remind ourselves that this august gathering has only been made possible on the strength of remarkable breakthroughs, extraordinary science diplomacy, and courageous leadership that enabled us to bring the pandemic under control, the COVID-19 pandemic. In this regard, our president had played a seminal role in speaking on behalf of the developing world, including Africa, around issues of vaccine equity, social justice, and inclusivity. In November 2019, I had announced that the theme for South Africa's hosting of the World Science Forum would be Science for Social Justice. We chose this theme because we believe that the greatest societal challenge of our time is the massive poverty and inequality which continues to hobble the life chances of millions across the world, particularly in developing countries, but also within the developed world. This theme of science for social justice is particularly poignant if we reflect on a central paradox of the truly magnificent advances made in modern science and technology over the last century or so, against the equally spectacular failures of the dominant economies to create a more equal, inclusive, and fairer deal for millions of people? How can we improve our science to ensure its benefit reach the most vulnerable in society? That is the fundamental question for this World Science Forum. And what in our political, cultural, and social systems require changes in order to ensure science truly serves all of society? I'm confident, nevertheless, that as we convene, we have all the ingredients to achieve this mission. We have the people. You are here. Scientists and scholars, policymakers and government officials, the business communities and entrepreneurs, civil society and media, the young and the old, and I can tell you, President, they are all from 118 countries across the world gathered here today. I'm especially delighted that a large number of delegates have joined us from the rest of our continent and would like to thank the African Academy of Sciences for its support. For us, broader African solidarity, strategic cooperation, and unity in action to pursue the goals of advancing the frontiers of science and technology for social justice is absolutely imperative. For us as South Africa, and through my department in particular, we also must use this platform to place at the center of the world scientific community the necessity for research funding for science, technology, and innovation for the African continent as a whole, and to provide and support and research funding to deal with the problems that are particularly confronting the African continent. We believe it is through confronting the problems facing the African continent that Africa will in turn be able to contribute in addressing the problems of the rest of the world. We require dialogue between the developed and developing worlds in order to achieve this, but also a dialogue between generations. Mr. President, it is for this reason that I deeply appreciate the participation of young scientists at the World Science Forum. They told us today that one thing that they bring into this forum is energy. After all, if our generation and generations before brought the world to the brink of ecological and climate disaster, perhaps we should place much greater faith and responsibility of young people to become stewards of the earth. This conference, I also need to say, is the product of many invaluable international partnerships. A special word of thanks must also go to the World Science Forum founding partners, UNESCO, the International Science Council, the American Association of Science, for their huge investment in our forum. We are indeed proud that the WSF program for this week in Cape Town presents not only 5 plenary and 28 thematic debates, but is also holding more than 60 side and satellite events. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are indeed privileged that the President of the Republic of South Africa, President Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, is with us to deliver the keynote address, which will officially open the World Science Forum. Mr. President, we look forward in anticipation to your address later tonight. Thank you for being with us at this historic event and setting aside time from your extremely busy schedule. And allow me to also extend my deep appreciation for the extraordinary leadership role that you have played during the darkest hours of the COVID-19 pandemic. We remember the valiant role you played as a leader across the developing world in campaigning for greater vaccine equity and justice, and how you stood firm to uphold the name of science in the face of fake news and pseudoscientific disinformation. And more recently, we also know of your dynamic role in the global campaign for a just transition in the face of major pressures for global adaptations to climate change. I'm also proud to announce that the South African cabinet, under the leadership of our president, most recently approved a new decadal 10-year plan for science, technology, and innovation. In early 2023, President Ramaphosa will chair the first presidential plenary meeting convened under the decadal plan, which will bring together senior government, business, science, and civil society leaders to commit through South Africa's first Innovation and Skills Compact to implement an agenda which can best be described as one for science, for social justice. We look forward to the address by our president. We will also receive a key message from President Katalin Novak of Hungary, which will be delivered by the ambassador. Yesterday, President, as I conclude, and dear colleagues, I had the privilege to visit the site where the International Square Kilometre Array Telescope is being erected in Carnarvon in the Northern Cape province of South Africa. I was accompanied by a distinguished delegation, including the chair of the SKA Observatory, Professor Catherine Sesaski. The construction process has just begun for the building of new SKA dishes, which will be 133 of them that over the 10 years we will be able to build in our continent, which means, President, ladies and gentlemen, most of astronomical insights and findings in future, most of them will be coming from the dishes located in the African continent. And indeed, our continent deserves that. We are the origins of humanity, and therefore we should also cater for the future of humanity by also having insights from astronomy. Allow me to wish you well with the conference and express the sincere hope that from this will flow a new fountain of knowledge and wisdom to help us become pathfinders to a more sustainable and humane future for all our peoples, and ensure that science indeed serves no other purpose other than that of social justice. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the kind words. We will now have Your Excellency President messages of support from the World Science Forum founding organizations. And I'd like to invite them to come and sit here, and then they will come one by one to this podium and deliver the message. So Professor Thomas Freund, the president of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, who's also the co-chair of the World Science Forum Steering Committee. Dr. Shamila Nair Bodier, Assistant Director General for Natural Sciences from UNESCO. Can use this slide. And then Professor Sir Peter Gluckman, President of the International Science Council. And then lastly, Dr. Sudeep Parekh, the CEO of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. So we will then invite Professor Freund to come and deliver his address. Come back, so forth. We'll leave together. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, Mr. President, Cyril Ramaphosa, Honorable Minister Blade Zimande, Ministers of South Africa and the partner countries, the Presidents and Director Generals of the WSF partner organizations, dear colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen. Some of you in the audience may still recall the 1999 UNESCO World Conference on Science organized 23 years ago in Budapest, the capital city of Hungary. It was the first intergovernmental meeting summoned to discuss the role of science and our shared responsibility to define the way humanity may cope with the ever-pressing challenges of the 21st century. Unfortunately, the alarming pressure of global challenges had not eased on us since then, but this is not to say that the conference did not make an impact. Its declaration served as a point of reference for policy actions and legislations and paved the way for an increasing involvement of science in policy making. It was also the closing declaration of the summit that called for a follow-up conference series, which we now recognize as the biennial events of the World Science Forum. I can only praise the wisdom and dedication of my predecessors, the leaders of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences of that time, who took the initiative and offered to host the first conferences in Budapest. Their enterprise was immediately endorsed by UNESCO, the International Council of Scientific Unions, now ISC, and the American Association for the Advancement of Science, which thus became the founding partners of the World Science Forum. Without their continued support and the excellent partnership of the World Academy of Sciences, the Inter-Academy Partnership, the European Academy's Science Advisory Council, and lately the Global Young Academy, the World Science Forum series could not have become an event of the magnitude as we witness it now. In the year 2013, this biennial series of meetings acquired a new dimension by being organized for the first time outside Europe by an emerging country, Brazil, with great success. 4 years later, we could attend a historic and truly memorable gathering in Jordan under the title Science for Peace, with an attendance surpassing all previous events. After the celebration of the 20th anniversary of the WSF in Budapest in 2019 and almost 3 years of COVID pandemic, we are finally here in Cape Town, South Africa, once again in a country which has already invested so much into science and technology and which is devoted to do even more. By hosting the World Science Forum is not only a testament to respecting the importance of scientific knowledge, it is also the expectation of a leading role in science diplomacy South Africa is also well known for. As I look around in this room, I have no doubt we could not have chosen a better location for this prestigious scientific assembly. The road leading to this moment has been one of a steady ascension, and the role of this forum in integrating the world's diverse scientific communities is certainly remarkable. I am fully aware of the tremendous underlying efforts that it takes to organize an international event of this size for the host country. Let me extend our sincere acknowledgements to the Republic of South Africa and the Department of Science and Innovation for pursuing this overwhelming task. Although this is but the opening ceremony, I am confident that the efforts my fellow co-chair, Minister Blade Zimande, and the organizing team from DSI, led by Mr. Dan du Toit, will give an inspiration to all who are yet to contribute to the success of this forum. Dear ladies and gentlemen, the main theme of the 2022 World Science Forum is Science for Social Justice. There will be several plenary and thematic sessions opening up the floor for lively discussions on the many aspects of this topic, but for now, let me just share with you a few thoughts on my personal approach that underpins this broad concept. There is no denying that scientific research and its many applications that fuel technological progress may have made our world a better place for an increasing number of people. Thanks to them, we live longer. Until recently, the number of people suffering from hunger or extreme poverty had been dropping steadily, and more could gain access to education, healthcare, and scientific information on a global scale. However, According to the latest UN report on sustainability, we seem to have reached the limits of our current path of development. Inequalities are more apparent than ever. Climate change seems to be unstoppable. Hunger and food insecurity are on the rise again. And so are the military conflicts, resulting in the highest number of people forced to flee from their home for decades. Our global civilization is clearly pushing its boundaries, and this must have its consequences for scientific research as well. Beyond the urge to deliver the latest scientific breakthroughs, we need to make sure that the scientific information is produced, distributed, and most importantly, used in a just and socially responsible manner. We must insist that it is indeed taken into consideration in policy decisions of governments, business decisions of powerful global companies, and in our everyday decisions as ordinary people. While we are more exposed to an unreliable flood of information than ever before. Science alone cannot deliver social justice. Nevertheless, I am convinced that the responsible and wise use of scientific information can contribute to achieving a fair and sustainable world. Our joint task as stakeholders of science, including my fellow researchers, politicians, media representatives, industrialists, and civil society, is to make sure that we use the evidence that we already have and act accordingly. Dear colleagues, when talking about social justice in science, we can't forget about the divides between the traditional powerhouses of scientific research, the emerging scientific powers of the world, and those which are yet to make a strong commitment. We cannot afford to waste talented minds anywhere in the world, and especially not in the young generations and developing nations. The role of the African continent, with its vast reserves of both natural and human resources, its extraordinary diversity of nature and cultures, and the still largely unexplored wealth of indigenous knowledge, cannot be overemphasized. We need to have this array of resources on board in our quest to provide solutions for global challenges. Therefore, it is essential to develop mechanisms which can guarantee that investing into science and education on the national level is not jeopardized by an even stronger appetite for brain drain globally. Coming from Hungary, a relatively small Central European state of modest economic stature, I am aware of the difficulties of preserving human capacity in science. I will be glad to share our experience at the Hungarian Academy of Sciences in this regard, but I am certain that other delegates in this room, including those from our host country, can also present some instructive examples. May I also argue for the importance of basic sciences and research driven by curiosity without any direct application in mind. A solid base in quality education and curiosity-driven research will continue to be the greatest asset of any country in joining the global leaders in innovation, but it will also be imperative on our way to the fulfillment of the idea of social justice on a global level. We are in great need of international science agreements and funding schemes that rate the preservation of and the support for national science capacities as a top priority and the prerequisite of global stability and sustainability. The four-day program of the 2022 World Science Forum offers once again a great opportunity for policymakers, journalists, representatives of industry and society, as well as us scientists, to engage in inspiring debates and honest discussions. I'm truly thankful that we have the privilege to enjoy this program in such a beautiful city and among so many wonderful people from all around the world. I wish you all an extraordinary meeting at the World Science Forum in Cape Town. Thank you for your attention.
Your Excellency, Mr. President Cyril Ramaphosa, President of South Africa, Honorable Minister Bonginkosi Nzimande, Minister of Higher Education, Science and Technology of South Africa, Honorable Ministers, Professor Thomas Freund, President of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, ladies and gentlemen, dear children, it is my great pleasure and honor to be with you here today and to deliver this speech on behalf of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, commonly known as UNESCO, your home. I'm a child of South Africa, and I want to express the warm gratitude from UNESCO to the government of South Africa for hosting this exceptional forum, the World Science Forum. UNESCO is honored and delighted to be a partner in organizing this forum, which continues to provide much-needed platform for scientists, policymakers, civil society, international organizations, academic institutions, and the population at large, and the media. The theme this year, Science for Social Justice, is of particular acuity, coming as it does during a global pandemic, and at a time when energy and food prices are at an all-time high. These external shocks are being compounded by climate disruption. It is the potent combination of investment in science and a productive coalition of South African scientists working together and exchanging scientific information and data on the Omicron variant, COVID-19, that saved millions of lives across the world. During the pandemic, South Africa's scientific community have come together in a true demonstration of multilateralism, unprecedented international scientific collaboration, open science, beyond borders, beyond paywalls, beyond patents to tackle the coronavirus. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear children, science can foster social justice as long as solutions are tailored to local needs. For instance, science can foster greater food and water security by developing crops that need little water in areas suffering from water shortages. Science is a human right. In other words, science should benefit everyone. And as Nelson Mandela once said, overcoming poverty is not a task of charity, it is an act of justice. Science for social justice means using science to strengthen communities' resilience to climate change. The frequency and intensity of climate-related disasters, such as hurricanes, droughts, floods, are growing, making it even more imperative to reduce disasters and risks. So social justice is at the heart of UNESCO's mandate to reduce disaster risks. Our work as a dual focus on prevention and post-disaster response. For example, we're implementing early warning systems in the region and in Africa, in small island developing states, for floods and droughts, to improve resilience to natural hazards by providing access to the latest science, technology, and innovation, so that countries can be better prepared when disaster strikes. These early warning systems combine an analysis on the ground with satellite imagery and other technologies. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear children, UNESCO's international and intergovernmental scientific programs since 75 years in the environmental and basic sciences are fostering international collaboration. And the theme of this World Science Forum speaks to the heart of science for social justice. We need to invest more in our scientists and engineers, but also in our technicians. Science is not a flash in the pan. Scientific communities are not born overnight. Rather, they must be nurtured over time. This means that we must invest more in science and more in research. We must make science more inclusive in order to be able to draw upon all our talents. Today, just 1 in 3 researchers in the world is women. This has to change. In the basic science and engineering, we are working with partners across the world who don't have facilities they need to perform high-quality research. UNESCO congratulates South Africa for the launch of the Square Kilometre Array at this World Science Forum, which is a concrete manifestation of South Africa's cutting-edge research in physics, engineering, and the mathematics. People need more science, but science also needs public support. The public need to accept science. And in this new world, our education systems will need to evolve. We need a labor force to also evolve. We have to invest more in the basic science, technology, engineering, mathematics education. Scientists and engineers will need to evolve. We need more policy experts, economists, specialists from other fields. We need integrated solutions. We need to embrace a more transdisciplinary approach if we want science for social justice. And therefore, UNESCO supports the initiative from the Department of Science and Innovation to foster transformative innovation policies. If ever there was a need for more responsive national innovation systems, it is now. Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, ladies, gentlemen, and children, in order to tackle the daunting challenges we face, we shall have to find a way to accelerate scientific progress. This means devising new ways of working together. It means making science more inclusive, more transparent. In other words, we need to make science more open. And South Africa is hosting the Africa Open Science Platform, fostering scientific dialogue across African countries in the spirit of the UNESCO recommendation on open science. We have other recommendations at UNESCO, such as scientific researchers, and also the ethics of artificial intelligence. Because we are in a race against time for smarter development, ensuring that science fosters social justice will require fundamental change in the way we conduct science. The theme of this World Science Forum will provide food for thought in the next days, how to erect the pillars that will support science for social justice. In other words, science to the service of humanity. Scientific humanism in a troubled world must be at the heart of all of our endeavors to build a peaceful world and to ensure social justice and science for social justice, valorizing all of Africa's talents. UNESCO is delighted to be with you here today. Congratulations to the government of South Africa, and we look forward to working with you, to taking science beyond and to all parts of the world, especially to the women and youth who are looking forward to you and to the conclusions of this workshop. I thank you sincerely.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, honourable ministers, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the International Science Council, I join in welcoming you to this edition of the World Science Forum. Our predecessor organisation, ICSU, was the founding partner with UNESCO in the first edition of the forum in Budapest some 23 years ago. Today I want to acknowledge the remarkable support of the Government of South Africa and the hard work of the organising team in the Department of Higher Education, Science and Innovation in getting this to this point, given the difficulties of the COVID era, in what will be a critical meeting at a critical time for the planet and its peoples. The International Science Council has a century-long history. Its natural science ancestor, ICSU, sponsored the International Geophysical Year in 1957 that led directly to the multilateral treaty that the Antarctic should be reserved for peaceful purposes. Surely the high point of science diplomacy. ICSU was the sponsor of the Villach Conference of Climate Scientists in 1985 that urged the multilateral system to address climate change, and that led directly to the formation of the IPCC. And its other ancestor, the International Social Science Council, brought actionable science, social science to the fore through its International Social Science Reports. The need to bring these two ancestors, the natural sciences and the social sciences, together was obvious. The place of science needed to be and could only be strengthened with a unified voice of the whole of the scientific community. Thus, in 2018, the International Science Council was born, bringing them together in a singular global organisation. Its first president, Daya Reddy, and its first CEO, Heide Heckman, were both from South Africa. Never has a need for a strong global scientific and interconnected community been more urgent. Societies and governments need to understand and use science better. Yet at the same time, people are deluged with disinformation and misinformation. As a whole, we are failing on the sustainability agenda. Climate change is not being adequately addressed. Food, water and energy security issues remain the reality for many, particularly on this continent. Horrific conflicts continue and emerge. Issues of social justice and equality are inadequately addressed and are the topic of this forum. The COVID pandemic is not yet over, but what COVID has shown us is that both that we're all interlinked, our nature, our destinies are all interlinked, and it is the power of scientific cooperation that spans borders and spans disciplines that can make a difference. It seems important at this forum that we all understand what science is and what it is not, what science can do and what are its limits. Yes, science is the one knowledge system that is genuinely global, and it's defined by principles, not by belief, dogma, or political interest. Science is defined by being the systematic organisation of knowledge that can be rationally explained, tested against reality, logic, and importantly, the scrutiny of peers, and reliably applied. Its disciplinary scope is broad as its methodologies, but central to these principles are that the claims of science are open and subject to review in the face of new knowledge. These are powerful principles that should serve science, should serve the public well. But these principles are instrumentalized through science systems that vary by context, history, and culture. And the products of science are used by societies both for good and unfortunately also for bad, be it, for example, in war or in the projection of power. We must distinguish between distinguishing the issues of history and social justice and the contribution of particular science systems on one hand from the reality that science is the most powerful tool that we have to understand the world around us and within us and address the many crises we face. But to do so, science systems must evolve and must progress. We see the emergence of transdisciplinarity, engagement with other knowledge systems, including traditional knowledge, is becoming much better understood and more critical. The real attempts to bridge the gaps between the global north, east, west and south with science is critical. The increased diversity of those engaged in science is absolutely necessary. And the emergence of open science hits and is critical to the fundamental principle that science is an open and accessible knowledge system. But sadly, much of the science we do stays locked within our own science communities, and we must do much more to promote its access by communities, by policymakers, and to produce what is actionable knowledge. Sadly, the world is in a much more fractured place than when the forum was first formed. Science has much to contribute to healing these fractures. In this forum, much of the discussion will be on the issues of social justice and well-being for all. What is clear is that the global science community must use the very principles that define science to commit with energy and good, excellent science to help address the social, environmental, economic and political challenges that the people on all continents, but particularly on this continent, face. Your presence here today is evidence and is part of that commitment that science genuinely can play a major part in addressing the issues of social justice. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, honorable ministers, distinguished colleagues, and friends, I can't tell you how delighted and honored I am to be here with you at the 2022 World Science Forum in this beautiful city of Cape Town, where I feel so welcomed, so warmly welcomed. My name is Sudip Parikh, and I have the privilege of serving as the leader of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, or AAAS, and as executive publisher of Science in the Science family of journals. The AAAS was founded in 1848 by scientists as a multidisciplinary scientific society, but it's evolved over that time to become a mission-driven, multidisciplinary organization of general science with members around the globe. Now, yesterday, I had the privilege of visiting the construction site of the Square Kilometer Array Observatory. And I got to witness firsthand, Mr. President, the extraordinary manifestation of the creativity, the will, and the expertise of the South African people. The SKAO is a mega project requiring organization, resources, intellect, all over multiple generations. Multiple generations. It is, at its heart, a joyful and optimistic enterprise because it requires seeing 50 years into the future. I also witnessed the energy put into connecting this international project with the people of Kwaru and the Northern Cape. And that's what sets it apart, because this project joins such projects, such human endeavors as Apollo, as the James Webb Space Telescope, as the Human Genome Project, as the Tiangong Space Station. This is a project like those. And I submit to you that these are the pyramids of our era. These are the Stonehenge of our era. They require resource and will of people over multiple generations. But what sets this apart is that these investments, this manifestation of the will of a people, is not for the benefit of a pharaoh. It's for the benefit of the people of South Africa and the world, both in terms of increasing our understanding of the universe, but also with the connection to the people of that region. Because I am certain that among the children that I met yesterday, the children of the Northern Cape, that there is a world-leading biochemist, that there is an electrical engineer who will solve the problem of battery storage, that there is an astronomer who will see farther than anyone has seen before. And it is that connection of the joyful experience of science to the humanity, to building up the people that are supporting these scientific projects. We as scientists must go into this with humility, connecting to the folks around us to say, what are we doing to connect to the people of our regions that support our science? Whether it's curing disease or understanding the universe, we have to make that connection with humility. This is not about the elite. This is about humility that it takes for scientists to be a part of their community. And that is what I see in the SKAO. And I think South Africa should be incredibly proud of this investment and its partnership, this model of partnership around the world. We have much to do. We have diseases to cure. We have poverty to overcome. We have climate change to hopefully put back into its box. But none of that is going to be accomplished without a model that requires the collaboration, the inspiration, and the the pull, the compelling of these children from the Northern Cape, from Western Australia, from the Mississippi Delta, and from the Central Valley of California. We need everybody to be a part of that solution. Science for Social Justice, the theme of this meeting, is pulling that into one phrase, And so I look forward to working with all of you at this meeting to discover how we do that, because anyone that tells you they know how is lying to you. We as a group must come together and figure out how to do this. But you know, I'm optimistic. I'm incredibly optimistic, because I'm confident that as there was a AAAS president, Margaret Mead, who said that never doubt, I'm going to paraphrase because I always screw up the quote, never doubt the ability of a small group of people to change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Well, this is a small group of people. And forgive me, I do this often. I like to take pictures of the small groups of people that are going to change the world. And so, thank you for the incredible welcome here to South Africa, and I look forward to meeting each and every one of you.
Another round of applause to the partners. Thank you very much. I hope we'll be able to play a very short video on South African science, science at the service of society. It is possible. Are we able to play the video? A few minutes?
We believe in the power of science, technology, and innovation to create a better world. Since 1994, we've asked, what can we do to make our country and the world a better place? And we've worked to find those answers, because the challenges of the past weren't obstacles but opportunity. Partnerships, skill, and funding created the solutions we see today. The Department of Science and Innovation, making sure it's possible. How do you predict the future? How do you plan for a world that doesn't exist yet? We ask questions, questions that no one can answer yet. How do we feed a growing population sustainably? How will jobs change as automation grows? How do we get the information we need to make the right decisions? We ask, then work to find answers. At the Department of Science and Innovation, we partner with industry and other government stakeholders to find answers to some of our country's biggest questions. Not just to secure our future, but the future of partners, industry, and South Africans. The Department of Science and Innovation, making sure it's possible.
Thank you very much. So we'll now invite the Ambassador Attila Horváth, the Ambassador of Hungary to South Africa, to give an address by the patron of the World Science Forum, the President of Hungary, Katalin Novak. A round of applause for Ambassador.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, members of the scientific community. I had the honor of delivering the speech of Her Excellency, Ms. Katalin Novák, President of Hungary. The World Science Forum, an initiative to build a bridge between the world of science and society, in particular society's shapers and leaders, was launched over 2 decades ago. By now, it has become a major world event and a consultation forum that cannot be overlooked. I am proud that Hungary played a key role in initiating and launching the event, as well as being intensively involved in shaping and forming it ever since. This is also thanks to the commitment of the Hungarian scientific community to support society. The Hungarian Academy of Sciences is a dominant participant in the international scientific community, and nothing proves it better than its ability to regularly convene the key figures of international science and public life as one of the engines of the World Science Forum. We thank the Republic of South Africa for hosting this significant 10th Jubilee occasion of the World Science Forum. I am delighted that the representatives of different areas of science, politics, and public life can meet here in one of the key countries of the continent of Africa and the Global South to assess together the potential and the role of science in addressing the challenges of our time. Neither political nor economic actors can escape their responsibility. But this also applies to the prominent representatives of the domains of science. To not take advantage of the abilities bestowed on us to allow our potential to remain untapped and our talent to go to waste is more than a mistake. A difficult period is now behind us, but times continue to be challenging due to the coronavirus pandemic. The World Science Forum meeting had to be postponed. However, in this period was experienced how much we needed the work of scientists. Deep gratitude and thanks are due to those who use the best of their scientists' talents and knowledge to save lives, contain the virus, and mitigate the social economic impact of the pandemic. The success was not self-evident. It was based on decades of unrelenting work and research. I'm delighted and proud that in the fight against the coronavirus, we Hungarians were also able to show our scientific capacities. From among several scientists, allow me to highlight the Hungarian Katalin Karikó, whose persevering scientific work allowed her to make a significant contribution in reducing the threats of the pandemic rapidly and significantly. The motto of the meeting is Science for Social Justice. Facilitating social justice is especially important in the world today. Wars, poverty, social inequality, sustainability, unemployment, gender inequality, gaps in access to knowledge, there are just a few of the problems marking the 21st century. We are scouring Mars with robots. We want to put a man on the moon again. We are exploring the nano-world. We are pushing the limits of the human mind. We are making sensational medical discoveries. We are finding new cures for diseases. And yet the problems I mentioned earlier have remained prominent, and we have not been able to find an adequate cure for the wounds inflicted by the injustice in our societies. We must keep asking the question, how can science and politics separately, but perhaps even more so together, serve and help people to find solutions to these worldwide problems? Is there a solution? Are there responses that could bring justice to the deprived? Can we be the eyes, heart, and the voice of those whom society's privilege do not or do not want to see? We know that these problems, these injustices afflict the countries in the African continent more. We know and can see the problems, and it is our responsibility to help as much as we can. Those in need can always count on the Hungarians. This is also why I paid a visit to Kiev a few days ago. This is also why Hungary is supporting the initiative called Grain from Ukraine. Through this humanitarian aid program implemented by international cooperation, we may be able to prevent the suffering from food shortages caused by the war in countries that had already been vulnerable. Securing the food supply chain and thus enabling the smooth flow of goods is not a dry free trader or market economy issue, but a life or death choice. All who are present today at the World Science Forum, politicians and scientists, are working to make the future a better one. Eventually, the mission of politics and science is the same: to work for the public good, to eradicate or at least mitigate the inequalities in society which lead to tensions. The more knowledgeable and competent we are, the better we may confront challenges. This is why we have duty to support education so that more and more people could acquire the treasure of knowledge and understanding. Now, we as state leaders have a responsibility to support scientific work, not only by making available the resources and putting in place the right working conditions, but also by taking advantage of science when making political decisions. We must act today to help our children and grandchildren have an easier life tomorrow. We can achieve most by accepting the statements of science as being true. Social justice and peace are twin sisters. Without justice, there will always be reason for fragile peace to be violated and for hidden tensions to rise to the surface. Science plays a huge role in finding solutions to the problems burdening our lives. Science may find a solution to the water shortage, the food crisis, the need to increase the efficiency of agriculture. It may prevent the spread of epidemics, find effective treatment for diseases, and protect our environment and natural resources. You, being scientists, can and must provide the answer to these problems. But science cannot solve all our problems. The fundamental question of human life cannot be answered by technical or theoretical means alone. A sincere desire for peace, facilitating cooperation, solving our problems and conflicts through compromise, supporting those in trouble and in need of help, these steps depend on us and are up to us politicians and state leaders alone. Scientists, business people, the political leaders of our societies, we can stand up and work towards peace with all our might. Without peace, science cannot fulfill the role it has in society, that is to improve the living conditions of people. No peace, no rest. If there is war, everything focuses on it, even science. And yet science must serve the people, science must serve peace, not unrest. Science through talented minds opens up great opportunities for mankind. It only depends on us what we use it for. We can use it to end starvation, to protect the planet and its natural resources, to modernize agriculture, increase its efficiency and adaptability to overcome diseases and epidemics. Rather than all of this, do we want to use it as an instrument of unrest? There are times when making peace requires more courage than making war. And it is this brave stance that we need. We should trust not in raw force, but in the creative power of action and knowledge. Our goal shouldn't be to win wars, but to restore and preserve peace. The role of science has never been clear in this. Its discoveries made the lives of millions easier. However, countless of its inventions were put to the service of war as well. This dilemma has always followed the scientific community. Albert Szent-Györgyi, a Hungarian Nobel laureate biochemist, said, "For the first time in history, man is able to truly enjoy life. For the first time, he doesn't need to fear cold, hunger, and disease. For the first time, he can satisfy all his basic needs. But it is also the first time in history that he can destroy himself in a single blow or make this shrinking dear planet uninhabitable by pollution, and overpopulation. It is our duty and responsibility to prevent this from happening. Clearly, science is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it helps us manage problems, find solutions to the challenges of our age, and makes human life easier. On the other hand, the epochal achievement, discoveries, and results of science may also be the instruments of devastation and destruction, and the science confronts humankind with several moral dilemmas. Just look at the continuous development of various weapons, the impact on environmentally damaging technologies, or the biotechnical issues arising from artificial insemination, cloning, or the opportunities offered by stem cell therapy. Moreover, public consensus is missing on some of the above issues, and this has resulted in fierce debates. Science and ethics, morality cannot be separated from one another. Science and scientists must produce results that society truly needs, results that facilitate just and peaceful development. Therefore, we need boundaries indicating the limits of our freedom of decisions and giving us guidance as to what we can use from the achievements of science and to what end. Where should we set these boundaries? The answer given to this question will determine the future of humankind. It is a sad fact that countries must increase their spending on defense at the expense of creating and learning. Indeed, we need to be able to defend what is ours, but we also need development. We need growth so that inequalities are reduced, which will then, we hope, bring us closer to peace. I find it exemplary that the World Science Forum is meeting in a country that has voluntarily renounced nuclear weapons in a way that is unique in history, and where humanity and helping each other through the philosophy of Ubuntu is at the forefront. I hope that our host efforts in this regard are successful. May the scientists and government representatives leave our conference strengthened in their faith and commitment to peace. I'm looking forward to meeting you in Budapest in 2024 and the next World Science Forum. This was the message of Madam President. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. It is now my honor and pleasure to humbly request the President of the Republic of South Africa to give us the keynote address, Mr. President.
Thank you, Program Director, the co-chairs of the World Science Forum 2022, the Steering Committee heard Dr. Blade Nzimande. Those who know him better call him Bonginkosi, which is we thank the Lord. But those who have worked with him, we know him as a Blade. And that is his name. Who is the Minister of Science, of Higher Education, Science and Innovation. And also thanking Professor Freund, the President of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, ministers present here today, ministers from South Africa, as well as ministers from a number of countries on our beloved continent, Africa. And I'd like to pay tribute to President Novak, who has also delivered a truly wonderful message. And I extend my greetings to all of you delegates to the 2022nd World Science Forum. And I'm also delighted that UNESCO is also represented here, and represented here by our sister from South Africa. It is a great privilege for me to address you at the start of this most historic event, the first World Science Forum to be hosted on the African continent. As Africans, we are truly delighted for this honor that has been bestowed on us to host this forum in the beautiful city of Cape Town. I do extend the warmest of South African welcomes to all delegates who come from, as I heard, 118 countries, and especially to those who have come from those countries. You are welcomed to South Africa and to our beautiful city, Cape Town. Please feel at home. Make this your home away from home. Welcome to South Africa. Today, science more than ever is called upon to assist humanity in responding to the key challenges of our time, including disease, climate change, as well as food insecurity. We therefore need to ensure that this forum will not only be a platform for vibrant debate and discussion, but will also lead to concrete actions, suggestions, and solutions that harness science as an instrument for social justice. The theme of your forum, Science for Social Justice, is well chosen, and I believe that it should guide the deliberations that you're going to have. And we have already had really, truly wonderful insights that have been delivered by colleagues who have just left the stage. This theme expresses our conviction that inequality within and between countries is neither just nor sustainable. This event will inspire concerted global action for science to challenge and address inequality, injustice, poverty, environmental destruction, and marginalization. This is what I hope your forum is going to be able to do. By hosting this forum, South Africa is demonstrating its strong commitment to international cooperation in science. Science progresses when nations work together. It is through collaboration and cooperation, yes, in the scientific field and beyond, that we are able to make headway to solve the problems that beset our world. As this is the first World Science Forum to take place in Africa, we hope that it will contribute to advancing the African agenda for science, as well as affirming the crucial contributions Africa has to make in enriching global science. Minister Blade Nzimande referred to this continent being the origins of humanity, and it is now being called upon to find solutions for the challenges through science that humanity faces. I would say, yes, this is Africa's moment to address this as well. We have all the ingredients required to make success and to make an impact. Firstly, we have the rich and diverse complementary expertise of all of you, the forum participants. Secondly, we have access to significant collective resources. The brain power is in this room. We have the ability to cooperate, to build consensus, as we have done over time. And these are instruments, capabilities that can be mobilized for great strength in a variety of ways, including investment in science for social justice. Thirdly, we have our collective will and determination to ensure that science makes a difference by informing policy that will create a more just and equal world. I look forward to following the progress of this forum over the coming days and to the declaration that you will adopt on Friday. I hope that it will set out a focused and concerted action plan for partnership that will put science at the service of society. And in this regard, I want to challenge this forum to critically consider the following 5 key questions set for the forum's debates and to respond with clear and firm proposals. Firstly, what role should science play in protecting and enhancing human dignity and in fighting poverty, also fighting the unemployment that is so perverse in many countries, as well as the crushing inequality that we witness all over the world? For example, the inequality in access to vaccines during the COVID-19 pandemic was a gross violation, I would say, of human rights and contributed to further loss of life. The global scientific community demonstrated the value of cooperation in responding with unprecedented urgency to produce COVID-19 vaccines. Yet, the benefits of that extraordinary scientific work did not benefit all of humanity equally. This experience has informed South Africa's development of a national vaccine manufacturing program, which includes a partnership with the World Health Organization through hosting the mRNA Technology Transfer Hub here in Cape Town. I was delighted to see the people who are working on this program exhibiting outside there. This is part of a broader effort by African countries to produce the vaccines and other pharmaceuticals that the continent's people need. It was during this pandemic that we found that inequality was exacerbated, but it was also inequality in getting access. We were appalled that the richer, developed countries in the northern part of the world tended to hoard vaccines, largely for themselves and for their citizens, in the beginning to the exclusion of people in other parts of the world, particularly people in developing economy countries. And this manifested itself in the ugliest of ways, in that some of those countries hoarded the vaccines which were way beyond the numbers of their own population. And it was only after concerted urging and advocacy from us and various leaders on the African continent and other parts of the world that they started releasing some of those. Now, some of us found that to be a great injustice. Yes, a lot of money was thereafter quite raised to acquire vaccines, but in the beginning, the inequity that ensued was quite troubling. My second question to you as a forum is, what role should science play to enable a just climate transition that will enable us to minimize the social and economic impact and to secure the livelihoods of those most vulnerable to climate change? Minister Dr. Nzimande had already touched on this. Innovation and green technology must be at the forefront of our response to this challenge and must enable developing economies to exploit new growth opportunities in this regard. This is part of the motivation for South Africa's significant investment in developing a hydrogen economy, which will be presented also at this forum. I'm delighted that the African Academy of Sciences has embraced the energy innovation challenge. My third question is, how can we ensure the contribution of African science is recognized as a global resource that is part of the global response to global challenges? It is fitting that the World Science Forum coincides with a special ceremony to celebrate the start of the construction of the Global Kilometer Array radio telescope hosted here in South Africa. The SKA is one of our examples of African-led science excellence on the global stage. And I want to appreciate very much Dr. Sudip Parikh's remarks in this regard, and also the manner in which he believes that young people from the Northern Cape will be learning a great deal from this effort. And yes, indeed, I'm able to share with you, I've been reading your scientific magazines on a monthly basis for years, and you'll be pleased to know that I'm a great follower of the work that you do in America. We should also recall how the importance of investment in African science as a global resource was demonstrated during the COVID-19 pandemic, when many African scientists played a leading role in the fight against the virus. The work in genomic surveillance, for example, contributed significantly to the international understanding of the mutation of the virus. My fourth question is, what role can science play in reinforcing multilateralism, as well as global solidarity, which is under threat in the face of rising geopolitical tensions? If science is a universal language that does not tolerate discrimination, then we need much more science in diplomacy as well. Knowledge is a global good that we must employ to bring nations closer together. My fifth and final question is, how do we transform the nature of scientific enterprise, making science more reflective of the society that we want? We must ensure greater transparency and sharing in the scientific enterprise. We need to make open science a reality and maintain an uncompromising position on research, integrity, and ethics as well. The use of science for social justice requires committed international cooperation. This World Science Forum could, therefore, not come at a more appropriate and important time. I do want to thank the World Science Forum partners for entrusting South Africa with this responsibility. And I want to congratulate Minister Nzimande and Professor Freund on the steering committee's success in compiling a relevant and thought-provoking program. My appreciation goes to all who contributed to the forum's organization. Minister Nzimande and Dr. Freund, you have really done a fantastic job to bring together 118 countries in a forum such as this, and I believe that other people could be watching this being streamed around the world. It's a phenomenal achievement, and I therefore want to congratulate you for a job well done. Well done indeed. And I do want to assure President Katalin Novak, as the esteemed patron of the World Science Forum, of our continued support and commitment to continue working with the World Science Forum partnership to ensure the proud legacy of this World Science Forum and that it will endure and continue beyond Cape Town. I would like to conclude with the words of former President Nelson Mandela, the father of our nation in South Africa, who said, "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life that we lead. What matters is not the fact that we have participated in the World Science Forum here in Cape Town, and that we are scientists, and that we are learned and clever people, but rather, what will we do as a consequence to improve the lives of others, making our world a more just world, a world where we can enable people to lead their lives happily and meet their needs. I'm confident that this World Science Forum will contribute to the difference that humanity seeks and that what humanity needs. As the scientists of our world, you have this great opportunity, but you also have this great responsibility. And this few days as you gather here, it is on your shoulders to execute that responsibility so that the scientific knowledge that you have is employed to making this world a better place. I wish you good luck in your deliberations, and thank you very much, and once again, welcome to South Africa.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I suspect we've had the 5 questions, Mr. President, and we will be working hard together with, of course, the steering committee to think about how, as we proceed, we will give answers to these 5 questions. I do know, Mr. President, you have a very good memory of an elephant. So between myself and Minister Nzimande, we will have to, at some stage, give you answers. So, Minister, we will work hard to make sure that these are provided to the President at an appropriate time. So I just want to acknowledge 3 people before we ask Professor Katrin Sizarski to introduce the video of the start of the construction of the square kilometer array. In a letter that we've been joined by the chair of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Science and Innovation, and I've also been alerted that we've been joined by the Deputy Speaker of Parliament of South Africa. So we acknowledge them. And I do also want to express my thanks to UNESCO. Shamila is not alone. She's also joined by Dr. Ramos, who is the ADG on the Humanities and Social Science. And since we've been discussing this natural science and humanities interface, we're extremely happy that you've joined us. So let's move on then. Chair of the Square Kilometer Array Observatory Council, Professor Catherine Sizarski. I know she's not far from here to come and introduce the video. So you've heard a lot about this Square Kilometer Array start of construction. So let's give you a sense of what it is. A round of applause for. Sorry, Catherine, this side, this podium.
After the wonderful speech we have just heard, there is no way I could compete with the previous talk. I'm still extremely impressed with what we heard, and I think you can be proud to have a president that expresses such wonderful and important ideas about science and the future. So Your Excellency, President Ramaphosa, ministers of South Africa and other countries, AAA President, I have to salute you because of what you said, but of course also the co-chairs of the meeting, the presidents of scientific societies, and in general, Your Excellencies, ambassadors and high commissioners, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends. It is my great pleasure to address you at this opening ceremony in the beautiful city of Cape Town. The World Science Forum is a unique event. It represents a magnificent opportunity for us to gather as scientists, officials, and policymakers to discuss the most pressing issues in global science. Now, I have a dual role here today, because in addition to attending this forum, I have the honor of standing in front of you on behalf of the 16 countries that are part of the SKAO, the global intergovernmental organization responsible for the construction and future operation of the Square Kilometer Array radio telescopes. This week has been a momentous one for the SKA project, and it is highly gratifying that we can combine a celebration for important developments in the SKA alongside this important conference. Yesterday, Minister Zimanda honored, you are here there, you honored us with your presence in the Northern Cape in a ceremony to mark the commencement of construction of the SKA telescope here in South Africa. Alongside it, across the Indian Ocean, a similar ceremony was held to mark the start of construction in the Australian part of the SKA. The start of construction celebrated yesterday symbolizes the truly outstanding feats of science and technology we can achieve when we set forth in the best spirit of international teamwork, pooling our wisdom, resources, and determination to answer universally held questions. It has been 30 years since the first discussions between astronomers from around the world took place, leading to the wish to build an ambitious radio telescope with a collecting area of a square kilometer. Its initial goal was to look back to a time when the first stars and galaxies formed in our universe. It has then taken a generation to build a science case for such a groundbreaking facility. The science case now is much broader than its initial ambition. It has taken then a generation to select extraordinary sites and to develop the cutting-edge technology required to deliver it, and to secure the international backing for its realization through years of science diplomacy. Yesterday, SKAO took a giant leap forward by holding construction commencement ceremonies for the 2 SKA telescopes. I was delighted to speak at the Northern Cape event, and as I remarked there, I found it a profoundly emotional experience to witness the progress made and the impacts being felt in many ways in local areas. We can use such moments to reflect on human ingenuity and persistence and think about what is still to come from global projects such as SKA. Over the coming years, tens of dishes of the SKA mid-array will blossom in the Karoo region of the Northern Cape. On the other side of the world, tens of thousands of antennas of SKA low will rise from the Earth in Western Australia. The community waits in anticipation for our observatory to come fully online towards the end of the decade. The SKA telescopes will produce data at an unprecedented volume and rate, and will require a global collaborative effect to exploit fully. The notion of building bridges and cooperation between nations and communities to enable science is already a given and already happening in the SKA world. Yesterday, Minister Zimande announced the awarding of contracts to deliver the infrastructure for the SKA telescope in the Karoo. With the awarding of a similar infrastructure contract in Australia and of contracts for the manufacturing of the SKA dishes and antennas, this brings the total investment announced yesterday to 300 million euros across half a dozen countries, and the total committed by the SKAO so far to close to 500 million euros across the partnership. This is a direct economic and industrial return across the globe as a result of the SKA, an impact that will flow from large companies through to local industries and businesses. But the impact of SKAO, like other research infrastructures being discussed in this conference, is much more than this simple direct economic return. For example, the development of radio astronomy here in South Africa and more generally across the continent has already facilitated the creation of a new generation of scientists, engineers, and technicians. Yesterday, we heard from 3 young people whose life has been reshaped thanks to a bursary program supported by the South African government. Radio astronomy has changed these young people's lives and offered them unique opportunities. Sustainability and inclusion must surely be themes this week. The SKAO is committed to ensuring that the activities will be as sustainable as possible, and it places emphasis on the way the work will be done with the communities which host the SKAO, whether in South Africa or on the land of the Wahari Yamahi in Western Australia. There are already myriad tangible examples of impact stemming from the SKA across the partnership. This impact is wide-ranging, going from some innovation already spinning out to other applications and other fields, to helping bridge the gender gap in STEM fields, or ensuring the protection of cultural indigenous heritage around the SKA telescope sites. SKA, we keep saying, is a global project, but here in South Africa, I must take the opportunity to acknowledge the critical support of the government of South Africa. SKAO is indebted also to the tireless preparatory work of the South African Radio Astronomy Observatory, SARAO, and the Department of Science and Innovation in particular. Built by SARAO, the MeerKAT telescope, which is already sitting in the site where SKA will be, and which will be eventually encompassed in SKA, is already working and giving extraordinary results. And it's the leading such facility in the Southern Hemisphere and almost in the world, and it has become the jewel in South Africa's astronomy crown. So now I have the pleasure to introduce to you a new short film summarizing the recent progress and future potential of the SKAO. The film aims to give you a small idea of the scope of the SKAO and its importance as a tool for science and societal impact around the world. It features astronomers from different countries involved in SKA. It shows diversity in many forms and conveys the excitement of the SKAO and its work. I hope you will enjoy the next few minutes of film, and I look forward to this week of engagement and discussions with you all. Thank you very much.
Having scientists in academia and industry working together has been key for us.
It's really important to cooperate with this big organization to improve the company, to improve the production.
We hope that over the next few years, our teams in collaboration with our international partners will be able to build a powerful, very capable and robust monitoring and control system for the SKA telescope.
My contract is to construct the frequency distribution system for the SK Mid telescope to ensure that all the antennas of the array are perfectly synchronized.
大家可以想象一下，它是相当于6层楼高，一个天线现在40多吨，架起来它指向要这么高，然后我们这个天线在这么各种风力、温度和重力的条件下都要保持不变形，所以这是个很大的挑战。
Per migliorare le proprie conoscenze e le proprie tecnologie industriali si è avvicinato ai Big Science Project. Uno di questi, e il più importante, è SKA, sul quale stiamo sviluppando e realizzando i feed indexer.
We've been on a multi-decade journey. I am so excited to see construction starting in earnest and telescopes blossoming in the Karoo and in the Murchison in Western Australia.
Hosting the SKA Low Telescope on Wurundjeri country here in Australia takes advantage of the unique radio quietness of our remote Midwest region. The challenges of the SKA project are an incredible opportunity for Australians to showcase our skills to the world across industry, government and tertiary sectors.
We've learned that these projects can have an impact in education and development of the countries. So the SKAO is going to bring more training in the STEM field.
This project is one of the major successes of South Africa broadly, but of science and technology in the country in general.
We want to do our bit to support the economy. We want to be good neighbours to all of the stakeholders.
We have data challenges, we have people challenges, we have technical mountains to climb, and the Square Kilometre Array will do these on scales never before seen. This is going to unveil an invisible universe which we would never possibly have been able to see without it.
The SKA is going to have a huge impact on our understanding of the fundamental quantities of the universe, be able to inspire the next generation of astronomers to ask the next generation of questions.
We are sure that in the coming years we are going to live a great adventure together with our partners from countries all over the world. And we are proud and very excited to help making the SKA a reality.
Thanks very much, Catherine. No, Mr. President, we're running a bit late, but I hope you are still able to stay for the inputs from ministers from the continent. So I'd now like to invite, again as we did before, Minister Maria do Rosario Branca Sambo, the Minister of Higher Education, Science, Technology and Innovation from Angola, can sit next to me, Minister Maide Jose Mpanda Kabangu, Minister of Scientific Research, Technological Innovation from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and then Professor Felix Tapare Dekora, President of the African Academy of Sciences, and they will also come forward and say a few words.
Your Excellency, President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, Honorable Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation of South Africa, Dr. Zimand, distinguished Professor Freund, Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests and participants, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, on behalf of the Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Technology and Innovation of Angola, and on my own, I would like to thank the Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation of South Africa for inviting us to participate in this World Science Forum that takes place for the first time in Africa. For the Angolan delegation, it's a privilege to attend this forum in person in this wonderful city. Congratulations to South Africa for hosting this World Science Forum. Talking on how the production and application of new knowledge could and should challenge inequality, injustice, environmental destruction and marginalization is relevant. In the context of social justice, it can be discussed, for example, to what extent public funding of science can become dependent on specific interest of the researcher, given the need to rationalize funds to primarily meet real local demands. However, this raises problems for the future of basic research. We are confident, as a basic agreement, that social justice requires that people have a right to equitable treatment, support for their human rights, a fair allocation of community resources, and also that individuals should not be discriminated against, nor their welfare and well-being constrained or harmed on the basis of any identified features such as race, ancestry, gender, sexual orientation, national origin, or any other characteristic. However, when speaking about social justice, what comes to our minds first is not science, as we are directly led to think of social and political activism, social work, humanitarian actions, or even activities of human rights courts. In recent decades, the word sustainability has gained significant weight. In our view, sustainability meets its true essence in education. That said, we agree with those who support that education must be the most important application of science. Of course, this is not about having more scientific researchers or teaching about scientific knowledge, but about science education for all, providing citizens with basic understanding of how science has shaped and shapes the world and the human civilization. Being better educated, citizens are capable, for example, to leave some harmful cultural behaviors and to participate in informed debate and decision-making processes on the fair and sustainable application of new technologies, which would help address issues such as social inequality and the misuse of scientific discoveries. Certainly, we do not forget that the history of humanity is full of theories and practices contrary to the principles of social justice with regard to racial and sexual discrimination, just to name a few examples. Fortunately, the production of new scientific knowledge and technological advances have reinforced the rejection of these theories. Furthermore, when we discuss about science for social justice, ethics must be at the top as a basic principle of scientific research from the moment the question for research is raised through the design of the research project, its implementation activities, results dissemination, and possible practical applications. To conclude, education provides the best link between science and social justice as the most important application of science. And the teaching and learning process must focus on commitment to human dignity, as well as promoting respect and responsibility towards other living organisms and the environment for the sake of sustainability. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. I give my address in French, please. Excellences, Monsieur le Président de la République d'Afrique du Sud, Excellences, Monsieur le Ministre de l'Enseignement supérieur, de la Science et de l'Innovation de la République d'Afrique du Sud, chers collègues, Excellences et Madame les ministres de la Recherche et de l'Innovation, ici présents, très chers collègues, Monsieur le représentant de l'UNESCO,
Your Excellency, the President of South Africa, Excellencies, Ministers of the South African Government, Excellencies, colleagues, Ministers responsible for science innovation elsewhere in Africa, representatives from UNESCO, delegates to the World Science Forum, ladies and gentlemen.
Distingués invités en vos titres et qualités respectifs, Mesdames et Messieurs, j'ai l'insigne honneur de prendre la parole au nom de Son Excellence, Monsieur le Président de la République, chef de l'État de mon pays, Monsieur Félix Antoine Tshisekedi Tshilombo, et du gouvernement de la République démocratique du Congo, devant cette auguste assemblée, à l'occasion de la cérémonie officielle de l'ouverture du Forum mondial de la science 2022, dont le thème retenu est la science pour la justice sociale.
I have the honor to speak to you on behalf of the Head of State, His Excellency, the President of the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Government of Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, on this august occasion for this very prestigious forum which will address the very pertinent theme of science for social justice.
Qu'il me soit permis de féliciter spécialement le gouvernement de la République serbe d'Afrique du Sud pour l'accueil si chaleureux, ainsi que les grands organisateurs et des organismes internationaux partenaires du secteur de la science pour l'organisation de ces assises.
I would like to thank the government of South Africa and the South African people for the very warm welcome extended to us, and also like to thank South Africa and all the partners of the World Science Forum Partnership for the excellent organization of this event.
Excellences, Monsieur le Président de la République, distingués invités, à ces temps où, d'une part, mon pays est frappé par des agressions venant de la République du Rwanda, et d'autre part, l'univers est confronté aux défis mondiaux tels que la pandémie à Covid-19, les changements climatiques et la pauvreté persistante, la science en tant qu'outil prévisionnel est la source des solutions des grands défis sociaux. Elle est appelée à apporter une contribution substantielle pour créer un monde plus égalitaire, plus juste et plus équitable.
During this time, my country is confronted with many challenges, including aggression, but also including other global challenges, such as COVID-19, the climate change. So during this time, we really need science, and science needs to respond to these global challenges and to fight inequality.
De ces faits, durant ce forum, il sera organisé des séances de débat sur des thématiques autour du rôle que la science devrait jouer pour garantir l'accès à tous, une distribution équitable des ressources, des opportunités et des privilèges de la société.
It's very appropriate that during this forum we will have sessions which will discuss equitable access to resources and what role science can play so that those resources become available to everyone in an equitable manner.
Les différents participants au forum auront donc à débattre de la manière dont la production et l'application des nouvelles connaissances pourraient et devraient être défier les inégalités, l'injustice, la distribution et la destruction de l'environnement et la marginalisation.
So the participants in this forum will be debating and should be debating how the generation and application of new knowledge will be challenging these inequalities, but also other challenges such as environmental destruction and marginalization.
Par ailleurs, j'exhorte que pendant ces forums, qu'il soit examiné les rôles de la science dans la production de la justice sociale et la transformation de la nature de l'entreprise scientifique pour la rendre la plus réactive aux besoins de la société.
So indeed, also it's appropriate that this forum will consider the very role of justice in the scientific process and how science itself should be transformed to better reflect the values of the society we want, of social justice.
C'est là à partir des thématiques telles que la science ouverte, éthique scientifique, l'intégrité de la recherche et la bonne gouvernance technologique.
Very crucial themes indeed to be on our agenda of open science, of research integrity, of ethics, and indeed of governance of science.
S'agissant de la coopération internationale et de la diplomatie scientifique, une attention particulière devrait être accordée à l'agenda africain pour la science, la technologie et l'innovation, notamment par les protocoles relatifs de la SEDEC, ratifiés par la République démocratique du Congo, mon pays.
So with regard to international cooperation and science diplomacy, it's very important that this forum focus on advancing the African agenda for science and innovation, including through structures such as the Southern African Development Community, where the Democratic Republic of the Congo has ratified the necessary protocols.
Il s'y est également de noter aussi que la République démocratique du Congo, mon pays, est dotée d'une part d'un plan national stratégique de développement axé sur les trois dimensions de la croissance inclusive, à savoir l'inclusion sectorielle, spatiale et sociale.
The Democratic Republic of Congo has a national plan, a national growth and development plan, and a science plan, and this is focused on the three dimensions of inclusivity, including territorial.
Et d'autre part, d'une politique scientifique nationale basée notamment sur les domaines des recherches prioritaires pour le développement durable et équitable de sa population.
And our national science plan is focused on objectives related to sustainable development for all the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Excellences, Monsieur le Président de la République d'Afrique du Sud, distingués invités, je ne peux clore mon allocution sans pour autant réitérer mes remerciements au peuple sud-africain et au comité organisateur du présent forum pour l'accueil chaleureux qu'il m'a réservé, ainsi qu'aux membres de ma délégation. Je tiens à vous remercier. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, distinguished delegates, I can only but again emphasize and express my deepest thanks also on behalf of my delegation for the very warm welcome extended to us. Thank you.
Your Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, Honorable Minister Dr. Blade Nzimande, Honorable Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor, a long-time advocate and an activist for science in Africa. Professor Tamás Freund, President of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, leadership of UNESCO, TWAS, the International Science Council, and the AAAS. Ambassadors, High Commissioners, distinguished scientists, ladies and gentlemen. It's really an honor for me to express my support on behalf of the AAS for the African Agenda for Science for Social Justice. As the Continental Academy, the AAS is the voice for science in Africa and represents the 55 member states of the African Union. Its vision is transforming lives through science, technology, and innovation. Mr. President, the AAS, for short, has just completed its AGM, Annual General Meeting, in this very convention center today, which brought together about 50 young early career scientists from across all of Africa who made groundbreaking presentations on the work that they've done in various aspects of science, ranging from health, food and nutritional security, biodiversity, to indigenous knowledge systems, especially exploring the botanical wealth of Africa for treating neglected tropical diseases. Mr. President, in organizing the first US-Africa Frontiers of Science Symposium in Nairobi from 12th to 14th October 2022, that's this year, we received over 900 applications. Out of these, the AAS and its partners, which includes the US National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, could select only 50 applicants from Africa and 50 Africans from USA. Clearly, this shows the appetite and strong enthusiasm that young African scientists have for research in the continent. Mr. President, the Continental Academy at its AGM today also resolved to engage the presidents, the C10 presidents, as they are called, the 10 presidents that have been charged with promoting science, technology, and innovation in Africa. And it is our wish that you will be able to assist us to engage with them. You've said many nice things about the academy and the scientists in Africa, and I still will come and thank you for that. But we need to engage very actively with the African leadership, especially when it comes to funding science, innovation, and technology in the continent. Without financial support for science in the continent, we will not be able to go anywhere. Indeed, as you yourself have said, Mr. President, and some of the other speakers, there is just so much natural resources in the continent. But we are unable to tap into those natural resources for economic development because our science hasn't reached there yet. But again, as you rightly said, the talent is there. You talked about the talent power in this room, and you are right. But we need the tools to be able to do the work. And those tools can only be bought with money, and that is funding. So we really strongly rally ourselves around you and seek support to ensure that we can get our message across, especially to your 10 colleagues who are tasked with promoting science, technology, and innovation in the continent. Thank you very much for acknowledging the contribution of African scientists to the global science environment. It's a real great pleasure to hear an African president acknowledge the role of science, and you're one of the few, I must say, and I bow to you for that, and especially also to the minister I mentioned, the two ministers. It is wonderful to work in South Africa when it comes to science. There are generalizations that we make, but South Africa is not one of them. I'm from Ghana. I've been here for 30-something years because I do get funding to do science in South Africa. So we would like you to urge all the other presidents. Please urge all your colleagues in the continent to follow suit what South Africa is doing. If only we could get just another 10 countries doing what South Africa is doing, has done and is doing, I think in 2-3 years from now, the African continent will be somewhere in science. So I plead with you and all your ministers to throw your weight in convincing your colleagues in the other African countries that science is the route to go. Mr. President, I cannot conclude without making two very kind requests. And one, we need your assistance, as I've already indicated, to be able to engage with the 10 presidents charged with science, technology, and innovation. I have a standard joke that doesn't apply to you and to South Africa, but I always say it's easier to meet an African president outside his or her country than within his or her country. But that doesn't apply to you, Mr. President. And therefore, it's so difficult to meet our other presidents to engage with them. You come to Science Forum South Africa all the time. We see you when you were deputy president, and that's how you are. So you are accessible. I can talk to you at any place, and I can put my case forward. So we plead with you to ensure that your colleagues follow your example. My second request, Mr. President, is again for your kind assistance for the African Union to give the African Academy of Sciences an observer status within at summits of the African presidents and heads of state. After all, if the elders of science had not created the African Academy of Sciences in 1985, I have no doubt in my mind that the African Union would have created a continental academy, which is what we have now. So the work is already done. We can only request that you just bless us so that we can continue to assist the continent through the African Union. We work very closely with the Department of Education, Science, and Technology and Innovation to make sure that policies and other aspects of technological advice is given to them free of charge. And that's what we are there to do as a Continental Academy. So I would like to conclude by thanking you once again in advance for all what I have requested for you. I'd just like to say, may God bless you, and may God bless this Science Forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the two ministers and the President of the Academy of Sciences. I guess the title of Mr. Felix Tekora as a president, Mr. President gives him, the ability to make requests to another president. So it is befitting that he makes a request. So we will just make one announcement and continue with the program. We are running late, but we are still trying our level best to finish at about 8:30. The good thing is that there will be wine, and I promise a South African wine at the end of the session. So even if we are a little late, please bear with us. But I'd like to invite the President to take leave. We remain seated. If we can release the President at this stage. All right, may we be seated? This brings, I'm afraid, my job to an end. I'm now handing over to Dan, but he will take over from me. I'd like, as I leave, to acknowledge our Deputy Minister, who also joined us during the discussions. Dan.
Thank you very much, DG. Ladies and gentlemen, dear delegates, please bear with us. We've got a short program, but a punchy program left. And I'm sure, like you, I'm very much looking forward to the reception and to continue the networking. But it would be a miss for us to conclude this evening's proceedings with not acknowledging all the World Science Forum partnerships. So I am going to kindly request the leadership of the World Academy of Sciences, presented by Professor Romain Morenzi, its Executive Director, Professor Christina Moberg from the European Academic Science Advisory Council, Professor Maresh Rafetene, who's currently the co-president of the Inter-Academy Partnership, and then very importantly, Dr. Prosper Nkabonziza, who's currently co-chair of the Global Young Academy of Science, to briefly address us. And with the good example set earlier by my Director General, we're going to follow the same format. So, Prof. Morenzi, if I could invite you, please, to speak.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it is an honor to be here to speak on behalf of the World Academy of Sciences for the advancement of science in the developing world, an organization that is perhaps better known by its acronym TWAS. It is administered as a program unit of UNESCO and supports sustainable prosperity through research, education, policy, and diplomacy. TWAS also hosts the secretariats of the Organization of Women in Science for the Developing World, OWSD, and the Inter-Academy Partnership for Science, which are very well represented here today. For the past 40 years, we have argued at TWAS that all countries, no matter how poor, need to have a suitable cohort of trained scientists to assist in the sustainable development of their countries. Research into the return on investment in science consistently shows that supporting national scientific institutions and scientists is a win-win situation. But we are also conscious that science does not work in a vacuum. Expertise in any subject area builds up slowly, including by developing international contacts and learning from the best minds. This has been the strategy behind TWAS's many fellowship and exchange programs, be they South-South, South-North, North-South programs. Every year, TWAS offers several awards to researchers, including those from Africa, for international exchanges. These exchanges offer a wide range of opportunity for skills transfer and the forging of collaboration links. In addition, thanks to the support of its partners in emerging economies, TWAS has developed and implemented a large South-South fellowship program, both for PhD and postdoctoral training over the past 15 years. I'm happy to be with you today in Cape Town and have the chance to thank our regional partner for Sub-Saharan Africa, which is hosted by the Academy of Science of South Africa. Its contribution is increasing our reach to scientists in least developed countries on the continent has been instrumental. But there are many other reasons why I am happy to be here today. TWAS and the World Science Forum share a common vision. Scientific discoveries and applications can help us to attain sustainable development and improve the quality of life for people all over the world. This is why we are one of the partner organizations behind this forum. And this is why we work together as a network of like-minded organizations to foster and maintain a dialogue between the scientific community, society, policymakers, and industry. The histories of both TWAS and the World Science Forum are long. TWAS was founded in 1983, almost 4 decades ago, by a distinguished group of scientists from the global South and North under the leadership of Abdus Salam, the Pakistani physicist and Nobel laureate. They shared a belief that developing nations should build the knowledge and skill to address critical challenges like hunger, disease, and poverty by strengthening their capacities in science and engineering. The roots of the event that is starting today are deep as well. The World Science Forum series, as you know, was inspired by the success of a high-level meeting in 1999 in Budapest, Hungary, titled World Conference on Science for the 21st Century, a New Commitment. The gathering, convened by UNESCO and the International Council for Science in cooperation with TWAS and other partners, and discussed the intimate interrelationship between science and technology and the role in socioeconomic development and the environment. The inclusion endorsed by that conference was that capacity building is essential for indigenous development, and that each country should develop scientific knowledge in the fields that are most suitable for meeting its own priorities. Promoting science today is not only important, it is essential. This is true across the developing world and globally, given the long-term threat posed by biodiversity loss and climate change. TWAS recognizes, supports, and promotes excellence in scientific research in the developing world. It responds to the needs of young scientists in countries that are still developing their infrastructure for research. It provides means for South-South, South-North cooperation in science, technology, innovation. It also facilitates scientific research and the sharing of experiences to solve major challenges facing the developing world. By gathering scientists, politicians, decision makers, and representatives of civil society, the World Science Forum allows key leaders in science policy to tackle some of the major issues that society faces today. TWAS founder Abdus Salam said that With man's recent mastery of science and technology, there is no physical reason left for the existence of hunger and want for any part of human race. But while Salam's vision is still true and relevant, hunger and want are still widespread in many parts of the world, and equality often remains an ideal to aspire to rather than a tangible reality for all. But the time for daydreaming is over. This is the time for action. And this is why I welcome the theme of this year's conference, Science for Social Justice. We must facilitate a fairer, more equitable society where science underpins sustainable development and accelerate the achievement of United Nations Agenda 2030. We must build partnerships capable of stemming brain drain from the developing world. We must work hard and smart to transform our society to make sure that economic growth is inclusive and to involve social and environmental dimensions. We must make science more inclusive, more democratic, transparent, and more just by supporting UNESCO recommendation on open science. These are not just our collective responsibility, these are also moral obligations. The challenges facing science in the 21st century are many, and I'm sure this conference will highlight some of the concrete evidence-based solutions we desperately need. I really look forward for the next 4 days, and I wish you a fruitful meeting. Thank you.
Honorable ministers of South Africa and from other African countries. First of all, I would like, and I would also say, dear colleagues and ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank the Minister of Science, Education and Innovation from South Africa, Dr. Simsadab, to host this World Science Forum in South Africa this year. We, and I mean all of us, all mankind, are facing major global challenges. We have the climate destruction, we have loss of biodiversity, we have loss of vital ecosystem services, the access to clean water, and they are crucial for our health. What we need to achieve are some goals, and these goals have been defined by the United Nations in the form of the Sustainable Development Goals. So far, we have actually failed to reverse the trends. In order to secure a stable future for mankind, this is necessary to do. And what is needed are transformative changes. Concerted actions from all countries to shape a better future for mankind in our world. The policymakers have a great responsibility here, and in particular, of course, the policymaker in the rich parts of the world. But as scientists, we also have a big responsibility because we need to provide the science evidence to the policymakers. And what is absolutely needed is an improved dialogue between policymakers and scientists. In ESAC, European Academy Science Advisory Council in Europe, we provide the policymakers in the European Union institutions in Brussels with scientific advice, and also the policymakers in the EU member states. But we also work globally. As a regional network of the Inter-Academy Partnership, we also work together with other regional networks in Asia, in the Americas, and not least in Africa, because it's very important that we work together globally. We need to share the knowledge with the citizens around the world, because the citizens must also put pressure on the policymakers. In order to have equal opportunities and equal rights for all people around the world, we need to achieve the sustainable goals. And without doing that, we will never have a social justice. Thank you.
Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I represent the Inter-Academy Partnership, IAP, the global network of science academies, consisting of 158 academies of science, medicine, and engineering, and over 30,000 scientists and scholars as members. It gives me a great pleasure to address the World Science Forum 2022 on behalf of the IAP and on my own behalf. Throughout its history, the World Science Forum has been unique among science fora and congresses in its effort in bringing together world-class scientists, policymakers, industry, representatives of civil societies, and the media to deliberate on critical global issues affecting the scientific world and society. The challenges facing science in the 21st century, the ethical aspects of knowledge and the responsibility of scientists to society have been constant subjects, as have been the significance, relevance, and responsibilities of science on a global scale. In keeping with tradition, the World Science Forum 2022 has as its main theme Science for Social Justice. The rich program in our hands clearly shows how the forum aims at maintaining a dialogue between the scientific community, society, and policymakers. In a world bedeviled by climate change effects, pandemic diseases, food insecurity, and persistent poverty in large sections of the globe, it is imperative that science endeavors to create a more just world. As an African scientist, I can tell you that nowhere are injustice and inequality as rampant as in the continent of Africa. African science severely suffers from poor infrastructure, absence of fair recognition, and inequality in the world stage of science. That the World Science Forum 2022 is being held in Africa will certainly focus on these inequalities, and I'm certain will help bring African science to the next level. It's interesting to note that the recently held triennial conference and meeting of the Inter-Academy Partnership and the worldwide meeting of the Young Academies held in Arizona, USA, had inclusive excellence as its main theme. With such persistent calls and deliberations on social justice and inequalities, we can all be hopeful that society will take the necessary steps towards a more fair, just, and equal world. I would like to finish by thanking all the sponsors and supporters of the World Science Forum 2022, the Department of Science and Innovation of South Africa, and the organizers for bringing us together in this beautiful city of Cape Town. I wish us fruitful deliberations. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Excellencies, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Global Young Academy, it is a great opportunity to deliver this brief statement at the opening ceremony of the World Science Forum 2022. I take this opportunity to thank the Republic of South Africa for hosting this World Science Forum in this beautiful city of Cape Town in South Africa, the first one in our beloved continent, Africa. I also thank the patrons and the co-chairs of the World Science Forum Steering Committee, and as well as the organizing committee and all who have contributed in making this forum successful. Ladies and gentlemen, our mission in the Global Young Academy is to give a voice to young scientists across the globe in an inclusive national, regional, and international science diplomacy platform. Hosting this forum in South Africa under the theme Science for Social Justice, we find it as an important step toward inclusivity and science for the future as science for all, which is actually the strategic perspective that we at the Global Young Academy have given ourselves. We are therefore very happy to be part of the World Science Forum family and to be in this beautiful city of Cape Town. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Global Young Academy, let me express our sincere gratitude for giving this opportunity to young scientists and early career researchers that we are here representing to speak at the opening ceremony of the World Science Forum, which I think, as far as I can remember, is the very first time since the inception of the World Science Forum in 1999. Ladies and gentlemen, but it is also more than a symbolism. On behalf of my fellow early career researchers, we commend the World Science Forum Organizing Committee for having invited young scientists and early career researchers to speak in all main panels of the forum. This clearly indicates an excellent trust and a major step toward a more inclusive setting for the supported Global Science Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon also, we had opportunity to speak to the Honorable Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation of the Republic of South Africa, and we expressed we conveyed to him that we, young scientists, actually we are bringing to this forum energy and new ideas that we think is the future of this forum to be way forward. On behalf of the Global Young Academy, I extend to each one of you all my best wishes, prosperity, and having a productive forum. Thank you, and enjoy a successful 2022 World Science Forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the leaders of those World Science Forum partnership organizations. Indeed, the World Science Forum is all about partnership, and very graciously, many speakers have commended the excellence of the program, and that would not have been possible without the contributions of these various organizations. So it is very important for us to provide that platform. Several speakers, including our president, emphasized the importance of the basic sciences, the importance for also the Science for Social Justice agenda to invest in the basic sciences. And indeed, the World Science Forum 2022 is organized against also the backdrop of the International Year on Basic Sciences for Sustainable Development. And again, it would have been a miss for us if we wouldn't have celebrated that during this opening session. So very briefly, I'm going to invite Professor Himla Soedyal, who is the Executive Officer of the Academy of Science of South Africa, but also the Regional Coordinator in Southern Africa for the International Year of Basic Sciences for Sustainable Development, to introduce a brief video. Himla?
Thank you, Don. Honorable ministers, ambassadors, and distinguished guests, both in the room and those listening online. It is a great pleasure for me to represent the Academy of Science of South Africa to lead you into the video that is going to celebrate this year being the International Year for Basic Sciences and Sustainable Development. But before I do that, I want to use my prerogative as a scientist to ask you a few questions. Did you know that you are seated in the southern tip of Africa, where the most likely origin of our own species, Homo sapiens sapiens, has its roots? Not too far from here in PE, near Mossel Bay, is a cave called Pinnacle Point. And at that cave was the first use of fire to make tools. Not far from here, we have human footprints dating to 70,000 years. Not far from here, we have an archaeological collection that writes the history of our early ancestors. And living peoples from this region carry in their genomes some of the most ancient genetic signatures found in the world. So delegates, it is my privilege to welcome you back home, because I think of all the welcomes you've had from the eminent speakers ahead of me, no one realized the critical science behind understanding our own human history and evolution. And it all starts here. You know, that podium is very special, because I don't know if you realize that when the president was speaking, that our national coat of arms was presented. And the writing on that coat of arms, and I pardon all the people who can click better than I do, is a calm language that is considered to be extinct, but it is still spoken by some people in the country. And it says, Ke Keri Kam, which translates to diverse people unite. We are seated here today to celebrate a World Science Forum at the southern tip of Africa, knowing, of course, we have many, many challenges, as you've heard before. So it is imperative that we recognize that when considering social injustice, that indigenous knowledge systems were the basics of the modern science that we are privileged to enjoy today. So, irrespective of whether you're a chemist, a mathematician, a physicist, an archaeologist, when you go out there and you're going to taste that exotic South African wine, it is a concoction of chemistry that others have mastered to produce this exotic outcome that your taste buds are going to be sensationalized with. What I want to say is that we are all consumers of science. Some of us produce science, some of us commercialize science. But at the end of the day, science is the ancestral concoction that makes us who we are. But in order for us to deliver that, it is our humanity that must trump everything else. I do not want to repeat what the other speakers have said before me, but I want to just acknowledge that the Academy is very proud to be the focal point for advancing the International Year of Basic Sciences and Sustainable Development regionally. And it is because of the sterling work done by Professor Michel Spiro and his committee, the steering committee for the International Year of Basic Sciences and Sustainable Development, that we were able to celebrate in early July the official launch of the International Year for Basic Sciences and Sustainable Development. ASAF, on behalf of the Department of Science and Innovation and the National Research Foundation, hosted its own workshop on the 25th of August, led, of course, by our president of ASAF, Professor Jonathan Jansen, where we kind of set the tone for what it is we would like to do. We have done several outreach activities locally, regionally, also with NASAC, the Network of African Academies on the continent, with the SADC Secretariat to bring in the political mindset in the region. And I also want to acknowledge that through the Basic Science platform at the DSI, the Department of Science and Innovation, we have managed to bring the scientific community together around the theme of basic sciences. So we mustn't forget that all of this is about the advancement of the Sustainable Development Goals. We must not just get too carried away that they are far away. We've got 2030 to work towards. So with those few words, again, I want to welcome you home. And I wish to now introduce the video with a few words from Professor Michel Spiro.
Curiosity about the world around us is what makes us human. This desire to make sense of the world is the driving force behind fundamental science. Stirred by this curiosity, each new generation of scientists adds to the pool of knowledge built up by previous generations. We are at a crucial time for the future of our planet. Now, more than ever, it is imperative to use this pool of knowledge to help solve the global problems we face and pave the way for a more sustainable development. And we must not stop being curious. Future generations will be inspired by the knowledge we contribute today, equipping them with the powerful tools they need to build a better world.
Thank you very much for that celebration of investment in the basic sciences, which I'm absolutely convinced is a cause dear to all of us in this room. We're almost there. We're almost there to enjoy the wine Professor Imla spoke about. And if you saw extra chairs being added, please do not despair. We have one short item left, but it's going to be a punchy one, because we have work to do. I think our president was very explicit in his challenge to this forum on a call for action, on for commitments to be made. And of course, as well known to all of those of you who form part of the family of the World Science Forum, on Friday, the forum will adopt by acclamation a declaration which will set out an action plan on science for social justice. So what we want to do now is have a very brief, but I'm absolutely convinced, given the standing of the panelists, panel discussion on what does science for social justice mean and how should we respond. And that will then serve as input for the further development of this declaration. But since this declaration is your declaration, it's a declaration of the World Science Forum, the draft text is going to be available online from tomorrow morning with an opportunity for you all to give input. This can be done via social media. There will be a dedicated email address for you to propose the actions, the initiatives the President, the ministers and other speakers have asked for inclusion in this declaration. So tonight, our panel discussion is just to set the ball rolling, and we couldn't have asked for two better moderators to lead us in this discussion. I would like to invite Professor Karisha Abdul Karim, known to us as one of the champions for excellence in life sciences in South Africa, but also very recently elected as president of TWAS, to be one of our moderators. Prof. Karisha, to the stage, please. And then Professor Sarah Motshwetsa, who is currently the head of the National Institute for the Humanities and Social Sciences in South Africa, but is also the incoming president of the Human Sciences Research Council and one of the champions for social sciences and the role social sciences should play in South Africa, Prof. Sarah. And then we have 5 panelists, which I'm going to invite. We had Assistant Director General Shamila Nair-Boudel from UNESCO speaking to us earlier tonight, but we're very privileged that we have ADG Shamila's counterpart, Assistant Director General Gabriela Ramos, who's responsible for the humanities and social sciences in UNESCO and a champion for social justice, to be one of our panelists. ADG Gabriela. Then we have Professor Michal Kazachkin, who is known to many of you, former director of the Global Fund, the champion for the fight against infectious diseases, and in recent time leading the work with the Global Drug Commission on ensuring empathy for those people suffering from addictions and harm reductions. We also have Professor Jingao Kao, who is the executive director of the Alliance for International Science Organizations. The World Science Forum is all about global partnership. We have Professor Ibu Mondaza, one of Africa's leading intellectuals from the SAPES Trust. And then lastly, we have Professor Tashri Marimutu, who is currently the co-chair of the South African Young Academy of Science. Indeed, as the co-chair of the Global Young Academy said, for us it was essential that in every discussion at this forum, it should not be balding men like me speaking, but indeed the next generation. So Prof. Karisha, Prof. Sarah, it's over to you.
Good evening, everyone. We know that we are the ones who are standing between you and your wine, so we'll be very quick. My name is Sarah Motshwetsa. I represent the National Institute for the Humanities and Social Sciences, ministers, our deputy minister, ambassadors and colleagues and friends. Ours is a very a simple task. There are 2 questions that we would like that our panelists to respond to. It is an honor and a privilege that I'm standing next to Professor Abdul Karim. Indeed, she has just been elected the 7th president of the World Academy of Sciences. Prof. Abdul Karim, I'm always, and all of us in South Africa are proud and are inspired by all your achievements. And with that, I want to hand over to you to introduce the 2 questions.
Thank you very much, Sarah and Dan. So, greetings, distinguished guests, friends, colleagues, delegates. I know that we all pushed for time, so I'm going to observe all protocols. And thank Sarah Mosetse, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the South African National Institute for Humanities and Social Sciences. We heard from the President very, very clear marching orders about what we need to do, starting right now and over the next few days. And he also alluded to the Cape Town Declaration. And to introduce us to the Cape Town Declaration on science and building on the theme for science for social justice and partnerships to make it work, we will have very sharp 3-minute interventions from each of the following speakers. And they will help us and share with us, given their very diverse scientific backgrounds and geospatial locations, what is their definition of science for social justice? Question 1. Question 2, what are their recommendations on partnerships to harness science as an instrument for social justice? So let me turn it over to Gabriela Ramos.
Well, thank you so much. And I said that, that South Africa is really setting the bar high for this forum, and you're all staying here, so that's also a very great achievement. Let me just be very fast in terms of what I have heard and what needs to be there in our responsibility going forward. First and foremost, science needs to be pertinent, needs to address the issues that people care about, and not only find the solutions, but find the way to explain them better. Because we talk about climate, we talk about digital, demography, inequalities, they compound themselves. And therefore, we need to understand their linkages and present them in a very complex way. Second, science needs to be innovative, multidisciplinary. We said it before. We are, with the 2017 recommendation on science and scientific research, bringing the natural and social science, working with my colleague, but also with 5 countries, not only to go for innovation as we know it, but also to ensure that science is recognized as a human right, scientific freedom, and protection of scientists in their labor. Third point, science is ethical, and I want to thank everybody because you should know that the human and social sciences, and I see the nodding, it's about ethics. And we are, for example, 193 countries of UNESCO agreed that the development of artificial intelligence needs to be ethical, meaning that the technologies can be amazing, but you need to channel them to deliver for people and for human rights and for non-discrimination and for fairness and for all the things that we care about, and therefore this is very important. But let me say something else. Besides being inclusive and delivering for people, I think science needs to be daring. It's not that we lack science to take action. COP27, not enough commitments for climate change. You need more science to know that we are in a climate catastrophe? No. Therefore, science needs to speak truth to power. Science, and this is the social and human sciences that come to the front to deliver on understanding the political economy of reform, which is preventing us to use the science to deliver for change. And I think this is really important because we need to counter vested interest. We are not just here holding our hands together to produce science. We are here to make change. And if we do not address the question of vested interest and the political economy of reform with good governance, I don't think this is going to happen. Who are our partners? those that want change. The governments, the cities, the majors, the business people that are trying to change the way the financial markets work. I believe that anybody that wants to really make change that we needed is our best partner. Thank you.
Next, we have Michel Kazaksin, Special Advisor to the UN Joint Program on HIV/AIDS, and a key contributor to some of the evolving thinking that will lead to the Cape Town Declaration. Michel?
Thank you. Thank you, Kwarisha. Good evening, everyone. Answering your first question, I'd like to quote Kofi Annan. And he says, human rights are integral to peace and security, economic development and social equity. And social equity and human rights are the answers to the global ills. So to me, the answer to your question is, social justice is about access, equity, diversity, inclusiveness, and human rights. And the partnering is the partnering between the scientists who advance knowledge and all of the actors in the society who advance human rights. Now, coming from the health field, and you, Kwarisha, are so well placed for that, we have understood the role of inequities in societies in driving disease and in driving the impact on disease of society, of disease on societies. HIV/AIDS was our first lesson. 80% of the new infections among young adolescents of HIV among adolescents in sub-Saharan Africa are among young girls and young women. People who inject drugs are 35 times at higher risk of acquiring HIV than the general population. Gay men, 28 times at higher risks. COVID, President Ramaphosa was so eloquent about talking about the inequity in access to vaccines. As we speak, 85% of the people in the richest countries of the world have received full dose vaccination and a number of boosters. 24% of the people in low-income countries have received at least one dose of vaccine. So to me, the answer to your question is about the fight for human rights, partnering with the fight for knowledge. Human rights are universal. The right to decent care, the right to freedom from discrimination, the right to benefit from the advances of sciences. These are universal rights. They're also the rights of the young women and adolescent girls in sub-Saharan Africa, the human rights of people who use drugs, of gay men. So that's the partnership we need to build. And as was just said, it has to be built by the entire community, the civil society, the citizens, everyone engaging into once for all, changing our world to an equitable society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Kazaksin. Next, we'll have Prof. Ibo Mandaza, who's the Executive Chair of the Southern African Political and Economic Series Trust. Prof. Mandaza.
Thank you, Chair. For your first question, I think being here at first felt a sense of cultural shock, given that many of us grew up in the context of a dichotomy between natural and social science. Coming from social sciences myself, my first time seeing scientists trying to delve into social science. So my first point, that there's clearly no difference between social science and natural science. In social science, we seek not only to describe social reality, but also to change it. And I think that's the same thing in natural science. The second is that In social science, we have Minister here, we have what we call historical materialism. Might be a little alien to some of you. Maybe add historical scientific materialism, which is the history of the development, in other words, the history of human and socioeconomic development is the same as a history of scientific and technological development. And I'm referring here to the various epochs and to the theory of knowledge that over time, from the time human beings were hunting and gathering to the point where now we are in the era of technological advances, it represents an enormous development in the human society. From the time when the stick was used to dig, and then a stone was attached to it to increase production, to the level now where you use tractors to increase production. And therefore, the mission, the historical mission, is that we develop society to a point where society increases production, reduces the tension and class conflict to a point where, as the video said, to make sure everything is possible. We can predict scientifically that human society will reach a stage where there will not be conflict. There will be enough surplus that people will live in a better society than we live today. As to the second question, I think the concept of science and innovation, not only as means of mainstreaming it in education, such as South Africa is doing, but also in terms of its intervention in public policy. I think that is, the way forward. And I think South Africa must be congratulated. And I must say myself, I was quite impressed with the idea of science innovation as part of higher education. And I think this is a very important innovation in itself, an important intervention in education as such. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Ivo. We have two last speakers. Thus far, we know that gender is important in this. A better society, change is important, human rights, and indeed the importance of ethics in all we do. The next speaker is Professor Jingwang Kao, an executive director at the Alliance of International Science Organizations. Over to you.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Mic is on? Yes. Okay. I represent my organization is that.
Maybe just hold it closer.
Okay, closer. So my organization is called, the Alliance of International Science Organizations. China is registered as a non-governmental, non-profit international science organization. And for the first question, so I actually echoed pretty well with the 5 questions raised by the President of the Republic of South Africa. And so basically, my understanding that the definition includes development, first of all, that element. Secondly, justice, equality, fair, people-based, and green and sustainable development. So if you don't have development, if you don't build up the cake as big as it can possible, you cannot share it. So development and fair are very big elements in my interpretation. Also, we have to bring fairness, fair distribution, and taking care of the most vulnerable, the most disadvantaged people into consideration. here the point implies that the haves have the responsibility to help the have-nots, the disadvantaged. So I'm thinking about the Newton, third theory. For some of the situations, you need extra force. The haves have the responsibility to provide extra forces to take care of the disadvantaged. And also, it implies the basic human rights. So I made a few comments when they chaired the big science in a forum. And I tried to lead a discussion into the situation that with a lot of scientific knowledge built up, with a lot of data and technologies, we'll reach the point that will promote another revolution that benefits the rest of the society. But of course, so when I got that job, I was pretty hesitating, so the relationship. Of course, the basic science generates lots of major breakthroughs that benefits the society. But for the African situation, look at the African situation, China too missed the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, the information science revolution, but for some reasons we caught up, but not in the African continent situations. So you have to emphasize science for the most needed in this country. So that comes from my, some of the major areas. So a lot of hunger, severe hunger, then so we need to address that challenge. So agricultural science, innovation is extremely important. Clean drinking water. If you don't have the clean drinking water, easily they will get diseases. How can they protect themselves from the extreme impact of climate change, extreme weather? So definitely drinking water. And that aspect story is the science that brings tremendous benefits to a lot of people in Africa. Here, I'm reminded of industrial biotechnology. So if we can produce the food by cell engineering in the factory, that's a way to, how to fight against the climate change. Another area is digital economy, digitalization. So make sure that people in the remote areas will get access to the internet. They can take advantage of the data, bring the data into value. Here, of course, a lot of infrastructure. That is not the point that I can say too much, but for the first couple of things like agriculture, clean drinking water, a digital economy, industrial biotechnology, that of things that my organization is in the process exploring the possibilities. To create partnerships, we need collaborations to back people locally with international resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Kam. The last speaker represents one of our universities in this country, the University of Johannesburg. Her name is Professor Dustin van der Haar.
Okay, good evening all. So actually, Professor Dustin van der Haar is my co-chair, and unfortunately he couldn't be here today. So my name is Professor Tashri Marmuntu from Wits University, and I'm actually representing South African Young Academy of Sciences. So thank you for those questions and for the opportunity to participate today. In our view, and definitely the perspective that is shared by my science colleagues, science for social justice should encompass 5 A's: accessibility, availability, affordability, appropriateness, and advocacy. Let's look at the COVID pandemic, for example. In a South African context, vaccines were available, but not accessible. Once vaccines became available, we also had affordability as a challenge, coupled with the need for us to disseminate correct and accurate information on the vaccine. This is something that SAIS members decided to echo and voice their concerns and published an article entitled COVID-19 Policy Briefs Must Be Realistic, a review by young Southern African scientists. They also demonstrated the need for policies that are realistic and appropriate in a South African context, and further highlighted the need for public engagement and civil society to be involved in decisions that affect their lives. To answer the second question, SAIS members believe that in order to achieve justice for society, we need to have intentful and meaningful inter- and multi-transdisciplinary approaches. So in summary, we should be exploring the UN Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the Agenda 2063, and see how we can use this to foster, one, collaborations between different entities such as government funding, public sector, universities, research institutes, and councils. Two, we need to work together with scientists, the public, and all other sectors so that we can find possible and creative solutions to these complex problems. We also need to build Pan-African platforms so we can host research institutes. And the main reason we want to focus on this is to retain South African talent and also provide capacity for researchers and development. To make inclusive interventions, we need them to cater to the societal needs in South African societies and also the planetary health and quality of life of our citizens. So in summary, our 5 A's is something that we would like to foster and grow, and our young leaders are eager and have the energy to participate in meaningful policy decisions and spaces, and therefore would love to contribute to all of these Science for Social Justice endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you very much for the correction. At least I didn't get the university wrong, so I'm glad about that. As Dan indicated, the draft declaration will be posted by tomorrow. We are all encouraged to please send your comments so that it is our declaration that is adopted on Friday. With that, I want to hand over to Professor Abdul Karim to summarize and close the session for us.
Thank you very much, Sarah. That's quite a tall order to try and summarize these very eloquent and very insightful presentations. But I think what we've heard and continue to hear is the power of science and its ability to transform societies. What we're also hearing is that that transformative power is not equally distributed, and that there's some very basic human rights that are being violated that we need to take into account as we fulfill and realize this theme of Science for Social Justice. We've been told to be very daring and courageous, and to have that energy to take on the tough battles. We've got to do more than describe our problems, but really work to find solutions, and find solutions that ensure that everybody on this planet realizes their full potential, and that we ensure the safety and sustainability of all living things, and ensure that we have a safe environment, not only for the present generation, but the future as well. So please join me in thanking each of the speakers for their time and insights.
Thank you very much, Professor Karisha and Professor Sarah, and indeed to all the panelists. And we've got work to do. Indeed, we encourage all of you to engage with the declaration, and we look forward to your input. And I would like to thank all of those who've stayed for your stamina. I mean, one of the powers my minister and my director general has invested in me is that with this phone I have the power to send a text to people who will open the doors for the reception. And right now the instructions are very clear. Those doors stay closed, and those who have left the meeting room early will stay in front of those closed doors till we conclude the session. But the good news is there is only one segment left, and what we want to do is just very briefly share with you some of the highlights which are on the program for the next 3 days. And I would like to invite my colleague, Ms. Mampe Chaba, who is the co-chair, or rather the chair, I should say, of our local organizing committee, chief director in our department. But it was also very important for us not to only acknowledge Mampe's personal work to give her the floor, but she's really representative here of a unique, committed, and talented group of public servants, colleagues of us in the Department of Science and Innovation, who under the leadership of our Director General have worked to brought you this forum. Mampe?
Honorable Ministers, Deputy Minister, Excellencies, and our esteemed guests, good evening. I am aware that I stand between you and that wonderful concoction that Prof. Sudial spoke about, so I'll be very quick. The first World Science Forum to be hosted on the African continent has noted well over 1,000 delegates, 100 exhibitors, 350 sponsored delegates through our 16 partners who have provided travel and accommodation grants to enable delegates who otherwise would not have the opportunity to be here. And all of this has been possible through the support we received from our esteemed steering committee and our partners. Through this support, we're going to have 25 exciting, stimulating sessions in the next few days, sorry. But we have had a lot more fun in the preceding days through our pre-events, some of which included the Science Journalist Program, the celebration of the commencement of the construction of the SKA, the inaugural Science Diplomacy for Economic Development through the Hydrogen Economy, and also the Women in Science Film Festival. So don't despair. You might have missed out, but there is a lot more interesting sessions to come. The theme for this year's forum is Science for Social Justice, and we'll make sure that we unpack, debate, question all of these sub-themes that will be discussed in the next 2.5 days. So we have 5 sub-themes. The first is Science for Human Dignity. And just as an example, there is a session that will examine the role science plays in fighting poverty, unemployment, inequality, and exclusion, and other social ills such as drug and alcohol abuse. This is in an effort to demonstrate how science can build human dignity. The second sub-theme is on Science for Climate Justice, and this session will explore how science, together with civil society, can lead the way in correcting the failures of climate policy. The third theme on Thursday will be on Science for Africa and the World, and it will focus on unleashing the potential of African science in global cooperation. The second last theme is on Science for Diplomacy, and this will focus on the role science can play in rebooting multilateralism and global solidarity. And one of the sessions, as an example, will be on the repatriation of unethically obtained human remains and whether policy and science can converge to ensure community justice. On the last day of the forum, we'll address the topic Justice in Science, and we will reflect on how science can contribute to the society we want. This last day of the forum will also focus on the adoption of the Cape Town Declaration, which is a call for action for all of us to ensure that the opportunities, privileges, and benefits provided through science are accessible to all, to societies as a whole in a fair, non-exclusive, and equitable manner. So this is just a teaser of the myriad of interesting topics you can engage in throughout the forum, and our esteemed steering committee members and the local organizing committee who has done all they can to make sure that this forum is successful. So they've put together this program hoping to provide a platform for stimulating, thought-provoking discussions that will contribute to the development of our citizens. We'll, of course, have some fun, as we have a very busy social program, which includes a cocktail function tonight, a WSF delegates party on Wednesday, funded by Frontiers Policy Lab, a DSI Gala dinner on Thursday, which will include the induction of African Academy of Science Fellows, and a closing ceremony on Friday, ending with a braai. If you don't know what a braai is, ask your neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mampe, for that exciting overview. And indeed, we look forward to intensive and fun-filled engagement over the next 3 days. Excellencies, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, that bring to the close this opening session of World Science Forum 2022. I can solemnly promise and undertake there are not going to be any speeches at the reception. It will take place in all three, and you will see the science as you leave this room. And we please invite you to do there what science is also about, and that is about connecting people. Thank you very much.